tons and tons of you guys popping in, so good afternoon. I hope everybody has had a good first block schedule day. Hopefully it hasn't been too much of a, hard adjustment. We'll see how we do today. Just so you guys are aware, I am recording today's lesson. You guys are going to be the class that shows up in our lesson and recording for today. All right, so like I said yesterday, when you guys come into class, we're always going to have some type of question for our warm-up, bell ringer, whatever it is you want to call it. So our question today is, what goal or goals do you have for this year? Because we're starting. It's your last year in high school. It's, we're in our senior year. So what goals do you have for yourself? And if you don't have any goals, I want you to start thinking forward of what kinds of things should you have for goals or should you be thinking about? And if you guys can type that in the chat, that would be awesome. Or if you want to unmute your microphone, if you're feeling especially brave, you're welcome to do that as well. Anybody? Okay. Oh, okay, Miranda, thinking about what you want to major in college. Okay. So definitely you need to be thinking about what are you most interested in, right? Because the idea, if you've heard that saying, if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. That's a little oversimplified, but if you go into a job that is what you are passionate about, it's so much better for you. Mia, to graduate. Absolutely, right? That should be like everybody's top number one goal, right? We're graduating, especially because you're in a graduation requirement class. So that's definitely a big thing. Eileen, you want to boost your grades and boost your GPA? Ah, okay, I see. So you've got to really stay on top of things this year. Definitely. Because, bringing up your GPA will help you guys with entrances into colleges. It'll help you get scholarships. And sometimes there's even grants based on GPA, as well as, there's grants based on your height and your eye color and your hair color and all kinds of cool stuff, right? Okay, Daisy, you're trying to decide what you want to pursue as a career. Again, think about the things that you are passionate about, things that you love. And is it something that maybe you could translate into some type of job, maybe? Or towards a career? So I have a couple of students who are very into art and drawing, and they like to do it on the computer. And so one of the things we talked about is graphic design, as taking something they love and translating that into the idea of a career. So that could be something, right? Anybody else have any goals that they want to share? Thank you for telling me that, Michaela. I appreciate it. Definitely. Miranda, you're going to research graphic design. That's a good idea. I mean, if you can, one of my other students said they're really into drawing and they're really into video games. So we talked about the idea of some type of video game designer. Maybe not where you're writing the code, but maybe you're helping come up with the graphics and what it looks like, right? So, the idea is I want you guys to be thinking about, there you go. I read your mind. See, I'm good like that, right? No. But I mean, it's a thought, right? Another one of my students that I had many years ago really, really loved anthropology, loved dinosaurs. And he was a really good writer, loved to write stories. And he actually has now published 3 books on dinosaurs. So, I mean, he took two passions, right? Dinosaurs and writing, and he's actually a published author now. So, I mean, and he loves it. Like, I mean, this is a kid that from the moment he walked to my class until the moment he left class, like he could literally spend the entire class period talking about dinosaurs, and he just knew so much. So that's a really good example of taking a passion, right, and turning it into a career. So it's things that I want you thinking about. And this is the type of stuff that I'm going to be asking you guys periodically as we're going through is, hey, that goals you were talking about at the beginning, in a few weeks, I'll be like, hey, where are we at? How are we doing? Do we need to readjust some goals? What are we up to? And I'm going to continuously do this with you guys throughout the entire year because I want to make sure that you guys are kind of staying on track with your goals. Okay. All right. So, what are we going to do today? I told you guys we're going to start module 1, lesson 1. So yesterday in class, we made a copy. Well, you should have made a copy of your module 1, lesson 1 notebook and your module 1, lesson 1 project document for the Declaration of Independence. For those of you who were not here yesterday, I have up on the screen, it shows you our module 1, module, right? And it shows you where you go to where it says M1L1 notebook. You click on that assignment, and inside there is a blue hyperlink for you to make a copy of your module 1 notebook. So if you have not done so, please do so now. And then you are also going to go down to where it says M1L1 project, Declaration of Independence analysis. When you click on that assignment, there will be a blue hyperlink for you to make a copy of that document as well. Okay. And I'm going to give everybody a moment to either make a copy or pull up your copy and make sure your name is on it. And while you guys are doing that, I am going to do attendance. Remember, I told you guys just as a way for me to get to know your names, etc. This week and next, I'm going to call attendance, all right, and see who's here and who's not here, and then we'll just kind of go from there, all right? Julius Alston, are you here? Julius Alston? Okay. Elijah Askew, are you here? And if you are here, you can unmute and say here. Is Elijah Askew here? Okay. Alexandra Ayala, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Nico Belong, is Nico here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Jenna Banks, are you here, Jenna? No? Okay. Amelia Bradshaw, is Amelia Bradshaw here?
Present.
Awesome. Thank you. Alexander Camacho, are you here? Alexander Camacho? No? All right. Trinity Cantu, are you here, Trinity?
I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. Janila Cargill, are you here, Janila? Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Miranda Carrizales, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Melanie Cornejo, are you here, Melanie? No, Melanie? Okay. Allison DeLao, are you here? Allison DeLao? No. Wow. Okay. Anaya.
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Matthew Galloway, are you here? Matthew Galloway? No. Okay. Mia Gutierrez, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Zaira Madrid?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Nicholas Martindale Campo? No. How about Luis Martinez? Are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Danielle Matson, are you here? Danielle, are you here? Yay. Awesome. All right. Isabel Meager, are you here? No? Okay. How about Antoinette Moore? Is Antoinette Moore here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Spencer Oliphant, are you here? Spencer Oliphant. Okay, so Spencer, this is the second day that you have logged in and you're not answering. That is considered like absent. All right. Daisy Perez.
Here.
Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, good. I was worried that I was saying it wrong. Awesome. Okay, so Daisy is here. Jocelyn Perez, are you here? Jocelyn, are you here? No? Okay. Brianna Perez, are you here? Brianna Perez Contreras? No? Okay. All right. Eileen Reiser?
Here.
Yay. Madison Ritchie? Maddie, are you here? No, Maddie. Okay. Isabella Sorcini, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Thank you. Angel Tejada, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Micaiah Trueblood, are you here?
I'm here.
There you are.
And it's pronounced Micaiah.
Micaiah, I'm so sorry. Let me make a note.
No worries.
Okay, Micaiah. All right. JL Villanueva, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. Okay. Nathan Welch, are you here?
Here.
You're here. Awesome. And Randall Zanabia, are you here?
Here.
Awesome. All right. So for my kiddos that were not here yesterday, in our course modules, I'm going to show you quickly. This is where you're going to find the lessons we're doing this week, as well as the recordings that we do each major class. So yesterday I did the recording during third period. So that is the recording that is here. And then for Wednesday, Thursday, today's recording that we're making in seventh period will be over here as well. Okay. Also, don't forget, guys, announcements, all of your key information like the new grading policy and the attendance requirements are also in our announcements. And make sure you're paying attention to the remind text messages that I'm sending out to you guys each day, like you would have gotten one today. Angel, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So just so that you guys know, I sent one out this morning. Hopefully you paid attention to that. All right, so at this point, everybody should have opened up their notebook or made their copy of it, as well as their copy of the Declaration of Independence project. Remember, each one of these, for those of you who did MVLA for U.S. history, you will use each one of these to help you complete the notebook itself. In the notebook submission area, that is where you turn in your notebook. That is also where we have our notebook rubric, and that is how I will grade you guys. And I kind of went over this quickly yesterday. You've got to write out your supporting question fully. For your vocabulary, not only do you need to have the context clues, but you also have to have the self-created definition. Those are the definitions you created for all 5 words. For the Aristotle questions, they need to be answered in complete sentences. Same with natural rights, life, liberty, and property. You'll notice each of them have complete sentences, so that's what I'm going to be looking at. Not only that they're answered correctly, but that they're answered correctly in complete sentences. And remember, we're always going to go for the full marks, right? We're always looking for that. When we get to the primary source analysis, this time it's on the Magna Carta. You have to answer all 8 questions. You're going to answer them in complete sentences, and you're going to give me a couple of sentence summaries for the main idea, the bring it all together, okay? Your journal for full credit is going to be 2 paragraphs with 5 sentences minimum each, okay? That is a paragraph, has a minimum of 5 complete sentences. If you only give me 1 full paragraph, you'll get between the full and the minimum, you'll get 15 because it's not 2 full paragraphs, all right? And then finally, you'll answer the supporting question in a complete paragraph as well. And this comes out to the 92 points for the assignment, okay? Any questions on the rubric? Yes, no, we're good there. All right. So some of these you are going to actually have to open up yourself. The introduction, there's nothing for you to actually complete on that page, so you won't need to open that one. But you will on the reading, the primary source, the journal and review. There'll be questions that you'll need to answer on those pages. I will open my site and I will tell you to open yours as well. And then, of course, you'll turn in your notebook where it says notebook submission, and then we'll move into the Declaration of Independence analysis, that document for that project. And then Friday in class, we'll review for the Module 1, Lesson 1 quiz. Okay. All right. So I am going to open this up to the first part. Let me get to the actual notebook. All right, so in the first part, the introduction, and we talked about this yesterday, how we're going to talk about policies, institution, and founding documents. What shaped the United States federal government? Who and what influenced our founding fathers, which then, created the government that we have. So the first part of your notebook says supporting question. The supporting question that you're going to consider is, what philosophical ideas informed the founding generation? And you're literally going to copy and paste that sentence directly into your notebook. And so you see it's right there. I just copied and pasted it directly into the notebook. I've also added it into the chat for you. The second part, you'll see it says lesson vocabulary. And the vocabulary cards that we have here in the page give us context clues. And you'll notice on your notebook, it says context clues right here. And then it says your definition or your hypothesis definition. So the left-hand column, we're going to take those context clues directly from the page. And then the right-hand column is going to be the definitions you come up with, okay? So we're going to go back to the page. We're going to come to the vocab. All right, so the first word, and this is all these context clues are going to go in the left-hand side of your graphic organizer. So the first one is civic virtue. The more democratic and participatory a society is, the higher chance of civic virtue will be present. I'm going to put that in the chat, and that goes in the left-hand side. That's your context clue, okay? Can anybody give me what they think their definition of civic virtue would be in the right-hand column? Anybody? The whole sentence is a context clue because you'll see, right, the more democratic and participatory a society is, the higher chance of, and then the word civic virtue, which is your vocabulary word, will be present. Remember, context clues are your word or words are in a sentence, and based off of the sentence is what you're supposed to get the idea of what the definition is. So that sentence goes in there. Okay, but what more, Zaira, can you think of any, like, we're talking about citizens, right? So the more democratic and participatory a society is, the higher chance of civic virtue will be present. So based on that sentence, what do you think civic virtue is? Anybody else have an idea? Okay, but we also need to talk about citizens, right? The aspect of being a good citizen. Okay, so what would make them be a good citizen? What could we say that would make them be a good citizen? Could we say maybe citizens actively working for the good of society, participating in society, something along those lines? So we can say that could be a good definition when citizens actively work for the good of society. Okay. Following laws. Good. Okay. So in your own words, my words were when citizens actively work for the good of society. That would be my definition, right? My self-created definition. All right, our second word is common good. So in the left-hand context clue section, putting one's interest before your own is the notion of common good. So there's our context clue in the chat on the left-hand side. How would we come up with our own definition? What do we think common good means? Human decency. Okay, let's also put it in the context of government, right? So you're being selfless. Okay, so if we're talking and we're putting this in a government definition, would we be thinking or putting others' interests ahead of our own? Putting the interests of society ahead of your own interests? Serving the country? That could be a good way to define common good. Yeah, absolutely. That could definitely work. All right, let's move into inalienable rights. So the context clue that goes in the left-hand chart, right? Left-hand side, the Declaration of Independence provides inalienable rights such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I'll put our context clue in the chat. Now, what could we say for what, in our own words, what would be inalienable rights? What would we say inalienable rights are? Okay, but we got to come up with a definition, right? Not just a single word. What would be inalienable rights? How could we? Well, you're on the right track. We just need to fill it out more, right? So, are these rights that everybody has? Well, we wouldn't say maybe free rights, but maybe we could say the rights that government can't take away from us. Could we say inalienable rights are those rights that everyone has that the government can't take away from us? Okay. We'll talk more about inalienable rights as we go. Natural rights are rights that can be found in the given rights we are born with. So natural rights are those rights that we're born with, that all citizens are born with, aren't they? Okay, so let's put the natural rights that can be found that we're all given, we're all born with. Let's put our context clue in the chat. This is in the 4th box on the left-hand side. And then we can say the rights that all humans are born with. As in our own words. On the right-hand side. And then state of nature. So we're on our last word. So last box. Government does not exist in a state of nature. So what could we say a state of nature is? Can somebody tell me? Okay. The government does not control one's natural rights. That would be a good way to phrase it. Because is there government in a state of nature? There isn't, right? The way of life before society. I love it. I said the way of life before government existed, but I like the idea of way of life before society. Even I like that better. So either one of those, right? They kind of both say what, the state of nature is. Good. Awesome. All right. So you'll notice in your notebook, at this point, we've put the supporting question there. You should have your context clues and your definitions in your graphic charts in your notebook. Okay. The next part we're going to go to is going to talk about Aristotle and Plato. So in our pages, now you can either go to the module or you can go and click next. And we're going to go to the reading on philosophical foundation. Now, guys, this actually has a check your understanding. So you're going to need to make sure you have this open on your computer so that you can complete the check your understanding as we're going. All right, so reading, introduction, it talks about the federal government has been shaped by various factors, including policies, institutions, and founding documents. And in fact, that's our standard that we're dealing with today, right? What or who influenced the creation of our federal and state governments? So the first tab you'll notice says Aristotle, which coincidentally is what question number 3 or the subsection number 3 in your notebook is about. And there's 2 questions we're answering. Number 1, what were the differences between Aristotle and Plato? And then number 2, why would Aristotle be critical of the American regime of civil rights and liberties? So here's the thing. Plato was the teacher. He taught Aristotle, he taught Alexander the Great, he taught many of those philosophers. One of the philosophers we're talking about that he taught was Aristotle, okay? Plato and Aristotle helped kind of lay the foundation of what a lot of Western disciplines were going to be based off of, one of which is politics, okay? Aristotle was the father of classical republicanism, which is what we are. Remember, we're a classical republic. We're not a direct democracy. Plato was a mathematician who used dialogue. Plato was all about, let's get in there, let's talk about it, let's actually be involved. On the other hand, Aristotle was a scientist, and he was really more about like sitting back and observing and acquiring knowledge that way. Plato was like, let's get involved. Aristotle was like, I'm just going to kind of watch you guys. Okay. So the first question is what were the differences between Aristotle and Plato? Well, we know Aristotle was a scientist. He was a historian. He liked to use observation to acquire knowledge. He was more about watching and observing. Whereas on the other hand, Plato, who was a mathematician, used dialogue and actually interacted with people so that he could acquire his knowledge that way. So in your own words, the differences between Aristotle and Plato, just kind of taking what's in here and then kind of just synthesizing it into your own words. Give everybody a moment for that. All right, are you guys giving me a thumbs up if we're ready to answer the second question on number 3? Eileen's ready? Nobody else? Randall's ready? Okay. All right, more of you are ready. Awesome. Okay. All right. So why would Aristotle be critical of the American regime of civil rights and liberties? So if you look in here, basically the third paragraph, right here, says Aristotle believed liberty is not universal either in existence or in scope. It's just not possible, okay? Who is free and to what degree is a matter of status. Remember, Aristotle had a theory of natural slavery, thus liberty was only for non-slaves. He literally wrote, just as some are by nature free, so others are nature's slaves. And for these latter, the condition of slavery is both beneficial and just. Even among non-slaves, moreover, the proportion of those within the polis possessing the fullest measure of liberty depends on whether it is constituted as a democracy or an oligarchy. Aristotle also said that liberty is not the goal of social and political activity. Where we today, liberty and civil rights is our goal, okay? According to Aristotle, that was not education, property, politics. All of those things were just a means to the ultimate goal of human life, which was excellence or virtue, both moral and intellectual. That was what would achieve true happiness, not the civil liberties, not these rights, etc. Okay? So when we're talking about that, we have to say, he believed liberty was not universal. It didn't normally exist. It was not the actual scope because of, who would be free and to what degree was based on status. So if we're talking liberty, we would have to be talking about non-slaves, according to Aristotle. He also believed it was not the goal of social and political activity, that the goal was to achieve moral and intellectual excellence. So yeah, would he agree with this with what we are doing today? No. He would say we're on the wrong path. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna give everybody a moment to finish question number 2 in the third section under Aristotle. And let's do the question here. It says, which of the following did Aristotle use to seek knowledge? Was it the teachings of Plato, observation of natural phenomenon, omens sent by the gods, or public debates with politicians? Is it the teachings of Plato? Let's go back up and look. So Aristotle was a scientist and historical who employed the analytical treatise, right? He approached knowledge differently. He used observation. Oh, okay, yours is, oh, okay, yeah, observation of natural phenomenon. Yeah, okay, so yours is worded slightly different. Now, just to double check to make sure you have the right answer, you can hit check as soon as you get the green. Woohoo, we got it right, and finish. Oh, okay, okay. All right, so remember I said we have different tabs up here, right? And if you'll notice, number 4, section number 4 in your notebook, section number 4 in your notebook says natural rights, and you notice that actually coincides with the tab that says natural rights. So we're going to click on the tab, and it talks about what individual human beings are entitled to according to nature. They do not depend on any political authority or established religion. They are rooted in human nature and the character of the natural world. They are possessed by and are the same for all human beings, for all share in a common human nature. They do not change according to place or time, but are valid everywhere and always. Natural rights cannot be taken away. They belong to human beings as human beings, and they cannot be relinquished by an individual or taken away by a government. Some example of those natural rights would be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. Natural rights theory strongly influenced English colonists, and that forms part of the intellectual framework of the U.S. Republic. The fundamental natural rights to self-preservation is the basis of other natural rights, such as those to liberty and property. So the 2 questions that we have to answer for number 4, the first question is, how did natural rights theory influence the English colonists in America? So how can we take this paragraph here, and how can we say they influenced them? Anybody? Okay, impacted American colonists by proposing that every individual has inherent rights simply because they are human. Absolutely, right? There's another little small part to it as well. They also believe that they were kind of in conflict. So the idea is that not only does everybody have these inherent rights, but that we do need to come up with some way to protect those rights. But I like your beginning there, Eileen. We just want to maybe add in there that it led them to believe or motivate them to form an agreement to defend or help each other. We can maybe add that to it. But I like how your first part is. I like how you came up with that. Really good. All right. So the next part of this, how did Thomas Hobbes and John Locke differ in their view of natural rights? So when we look in here, Hobbes said basically, although people are equal and each has a right to everything, that right provides no security since all people are also in an unrestrained competition for the things they need and want. This creates conflict, which then motivates individuals to leave the state of nature and form an agreement through their own consent. That is actually known as the social contract theory, okay? John Locke said these rights must be protected not only against the infringement of other individuals, but also against the government itself. So under John Locke, he also believed that government should be strictly limited by the natural rights of its citizens. So Hobbes felt that the resulting conflict from the state of nature would prompt people to establish political communities. And Locke felt that the natural rights should be protected not only from people infringing on one another, but also from the government infringing on them as well. Okay. And then we have a check your understanding. So the question is, what are natural rights? Are they rights asserted by an individual, rights granted or promised by government, rights that stem from humanity's place in nature, or rights protected by like-minded groups? Can anybody tell me? What are our natural rights? Which one of these is correct? Stem from humanity's place. Good. All right. And then if you want to double check, you just click check. Yes. All right. Now you'll notice there's an arrow right here, which means there's another question. So we're going to move on to the next question. According to John Locke, what is the core purpose of government? Is it to protect people's natural rights, to guide society and determine its priorities, to protect people from each other, or to take care of its people and make sure they are prosperous and happy? Protect people's natural rights. Good. And then you want to double check. You click the check button and look, we did. Yay. So we hit finish. Now, there's another one up here. This is section 5 in our notebook, right? So we've answered the natural rights, and the next tab is life, liberty, and property. So let's go back to our tab on life, liberty, and property. And the first question says, according to John Locke, what were inalienable rights? And then number 2 says, what is the moral law of nature? So we know that all human beings, right, by virtue of their humanity as creatures of God, possess certain natural rights that cannot be renounced even by consent. He called them life, liberty, and property. So that would be our answer to question number 1 in section 5. And then we've got to go down a little bit to find where it talks about the moral law of nature. And that's a little bit further down in our reading. And we're actually under the right of property. We're talking about how much property can people have and how much goods can we use without waste. That was the issue there. And so we come all the way down to the third part, and it says right in here, the moral law of nature, which defines and limits our natural rights, is drawn more tightly in society. Thus, the imperative against waste still holds. So we could say, it says, what is the moral law of nature? It defines and limits our natural rights. It prohibits waste and spoilage. And then we have our check your understanding. According to John Locke, what is the core purpose of government? Looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? Which one would we say on this one? Protect people's natural rights. And yes, it's green. Awesome. All right. So we have finished Module 1, Lesson 1, Reading, Philosophical Foundation. So we've answered those two questions. As you've been noticing, we've been making sure we are completing these in full and complete sentences like our rubric says, and we've been answering them correctly. Now we're coming to the primary source analysis. And this is, we're going to be looking at an excerpt from the Magna Carta. We're not only going to put the title in there, but we're going to describe what the document is. And we're going to fill out the graphic organizer under number 6. Okay, so let's go to the next item in our modules, which is the primary source. So primary source analysis, philosophical foundation. All right, so again, it's an analysis. There's more than just one word answers here. You've got to pay attention and you need to summarize with depth. Okay. So the first part of it says title and description. Well, the title we know is Excerpts from the Magna Carta, right? That's our title. And then description. Like, what is this? Well, we're looking at this and it says 63 chapters that affirm not only that the king was subject to the law, but the law superseded the king's whim. So that would be our description of the Magna Carta, right? Unless somebody saw something different. Does anybody have something different than that? No? All right, so let's put that in for the title and description for our primary source analysis. All right, so the next part of our primary source analysis is concept/unit. Well, we're in the philosophical foundations of American democracy, right? We're looking at the things that created the democratic portion of our government. So our concept and unit would be philosophical foundations of American democracy. All right, now looking at this whole thing, what are some unique features from this? Can somebody tell me? Or type it in the chat? It was obtained by English barons through force. Absolutely. They were like, you're going to do this, right? What else seems unique about this? What are some other unique features? I mean, is it a single sentence or a single paragraph that says, listen, king, you got to do what we say? Or what are some like unique things to this whole charter, if you will? It emphasized that the king was subject to the law and the law was more important than the king's wishes. Absolutely. How about the fact that it's 63 chapters? Is that not crazy? Remember, all of this stuff was handwritten, guys. So 63 chapters, that's a lot, right? And if looking at just some of the ones that we looked at, each of these numbers is just kind of a little blurb about each chapter. But all of the chapters are like limiting the power of the king too. I mean, I think that's kind of unique as well, because prior to this, it was all about what's known as absolute monarchy. The kings had absolute power to rule. So this idea that king's power is going to be limited was a huge thing. All right. What are some new vocabulary that you learned in here? Give me some words and some definitions that go with it, please. Can somebody give me some words? Anybody? Come on, guys, I need some words from you. What are some new words? Baron is a new word, okay. And that would be like a member of the nobility. Magna Carta, which literally means large charter, I believe. Scutage, that's another good word. That literally means aid. Those are some really good vocabulary words that we could add into the new vocabulary section of the chart, right? Okay, now we have 3 more boxes, if you will. Each one is titled, "What is this about?" And there are 3 of them. It's okay, Miranda, you're back. You came right back. So what I did, how I looked at it, is I looked at this first part as like the introduction. Right here, this part is the introduction. And then the second one, I chose this as the second part. And then I use this as the third, what is this about? Okay. That's kind of how I broke it down. It made sense to me in that way. If your brain works differently, that's okay. But I looked at the first part, the introduction, and to me, what is this about? And I kind of said, like, the introduction specifically states King John, and reaffirms that the bishops and the named lords are standing before God, because that was big, to confirm that the English church will be free and will not be diminished by the restraints that are placed on the king. Does anybody have something else that you think is different or you want to add to that? Anybody? Nobody has anything else you want to add? All right, so that's what I came up with. Text explores the importance of the Magna Carta in shaping the development of English in U.S. Constitution. Okay, so how did it explore the importance? You might want to add something about, representation and trial by jury, something else you need to add to that. Okay, but you're on the right track, Eileen. I think in the second section, numbers 12 through 17, this one talks about aid. So it places limits on the types and the amount of aid that can be given. And it must be agreed upon by general consent. So prior to this, the king could spend money no matter where and when and how he wanted. And the people just had to pay for it. With this, it's now saying, hey, you can't just randomly give aid without making sure that, the people are consenting to this, is the general gist of those parts of it. Again, I was taking this in chunks. You guys can separate this up any way that you like. In 38 through 40, this one really talks about trial by jury, and that you have to have credible witnesses, not just a witness, because that could be anybody, but a credible witness, and that you cannot imprison or strip a free man of his rights without the lawful judgment of his equals. So 38 through 40 talks about the fact that trial by jury, credible witnesses, that was a big deal. And then the last part where it says bring it all together. That is your summary of the entirety of the document. So I said this document laid out the basic freedoms that all men of the land had the right to, and stated that the king and lords could not randomly take them away whenever they felt like it. This document said that this not only took place in 1215, but in perpetuity, saying, not only are we saying this is going to kind of force these limits on King John, but this is going to move forward for the rest of time and limit the king's powers from here on out. And remember, we had to have at least two complete sentences for the summary according to the rubric. Is there anything you think we need to add to this? Anything we have not discussed? Did somebody have something else, something different that they wanted to use? Again, I am showing you some of the stuff I came up with. Does that mean that absolutely that's what you have to use? No, it does not. I'm just showing you what I came up with, pulling from the documents. Okay, can you give me the hand clapping emoji if you are done with your primary source? Okay, Anaya's done. All right. So Anaya's the only one that's got that done. You're halfway done, Miranda. All right. Daisy's done. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and move because it's already 2:42 and we've got to finish this up and get to the Declaration of Independence. Remember my information that I came up with and the stuff that Eileen and I talked out in here are in our chat as well. So the journal question. Now remember, this is the one that it says in order to get the full points, you need to have the 2 full paragraphs. And they have to be at least 5 sentences apiece. So we're talking about real world connection. The Magna Carta was a legal agreement signed by England's King John. It's a list of feudal complaints that guarantees certain rights for the ruling class. He signed the document in order to avoid a rebellion. It helped in the idea of absolute monarchy, and it said the laws that all the citizens had to follow meant that the king also had to follow those laws. And it established a very early version of representation in government. By having the king sign this, this would become an idea that absolute government would now be limited by the rule of law. It's also kind of the foundation of the English constitutional tradition and ultimately constitutional law. It provides like rights for the king's subjects. It restricts the king's power to tax, guaranteeing the authority of the church. In recognizing basic rights, limitations on governmental power, and obligation of the government to protect the rights of all. The Magna Carta actually became the basis for the Virginia Declaration of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. It is also one of the foundations of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights and other constitutions of the modern era. So your journal question is, how does the rule of law apply today? So that is where you are actually writing 2 paragraphs of at least 5 complete sentences each, answering that question. This was my answer. This does not have to be your answer. You may not even agree with what I put. I'm just modeling what I answered with this. So the rule of law is a fundamental principle that governs how societies functions. How societies function by ensuring the laws are applied uniformly, fairly, and consistently to all individuals and institutions, regardless of their status or power. It prevents arbitrary exercises of authority and promotes a just and orderly society. In today's world, the rule of law applies in various ways. Most notably, we see this set out in the U.S. Constitution with the creation of the branches and the listing of their powers. It sets out not only structure, but also limits the power of the state. Okay, so that's my first paragraph that I thought of for rule of law. Hold on just a second. I just saw a student dip out. And that's not okay. So give me just a moment here. Okay. All right. The second part, so the second paragraph that I came up with is the rule of law requires that legal procedures be transparent, accessible, and fair. So we're talking about how does it apply today, right? So this would be things like the right to a fair trial, the right to due process, the presumption of innocence, the right to legal representation. That's how we see that in legal procedures. The rule of law ensures that those in power are held accountable for their actions and decisions. The rule of law safeguards individual rights and liberties, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and privacy. And laws and regulations must not infringe upon these rights without legitimate justification. So did I answer the prompt? How does the rule of law apply today? I did, didn't I? In 2 full paragraphs. Okay. All right. So the last part of this, and it's always the last question in every notebook, is answering the supporting question. So the supporting question that we did at the very top of this is, what philosophical ideas informed the founding generation? What things kind of, got them to that point? And so let me go back. All right. I said the idea of natural rights that every person has, combined with the idea that government must help its citizens and protect those rights, led to the idea that we have the right to end that government if it is not holding up its end of the bargain. This is based on the idea that all people have, and that should say not unalienable, it should say inalienable rights that cannot be taken away from them by the government. The idea of rule of law, that the government be held to the same laws as the people, has led to many protests and arguments against government actions. We saw this in the Declaration of Independence. We have seen these ideas in the Constitution with the structure of the government and the limits placed on it. We see this daily with the questioning of civil rights and liberties issues. Okay, so what philosophical ideas informed the founding generation? We're talking about natural rights and alienable rights, rule of law. Yeah. So all of those things that we've talked about, right, are all in this paragraph. Does anybody have anything else that you would change or make different? Anything? All right. While you guys are finishing up that, I am going to play a quick video to lead us to the Declaration of Independence, otherwise known as the ultimate breakup letter between the colonies and King George. Because literally, if you think about it, we tried. King George didn't do anything, didn't listen. And so in the Declaration of Independence, we were like, yo, George, it's not us, it's you. And this is why. And then we listed our grievances. So we're going to work on the link here in the project here in just a moment, but I've got a quick little video I'm going to play for you. And then we'll move into the Declaration of Independence project.
Halfway across the globe and we're standing on the ground. Screaming across the waves, you can't hear the sound. There's no fair trials, no train, no liberties, no tea. We've colonized America, we won't stand for tyranny. Oh, King, and it's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. You've paid your foolish tax, read the acts, and they just won't do. We wanna make it clear we believe this much is true. All men were created
Right. So it just, right? I mean, if you think about it, like by the time we got to the Declaration of Independence, would it be fair to say that the colonies were fed up? Would that be a fair assumption? Right? Like we were like, we are done with you, George. Like you just are not doing what we wanted you to do. All right, so the Declaration of Independence, you need to click on this hyperlink so you have the declaration, and you should have made a copy of the worksheet. And of course, here is our rubric. And you'll notice it says 2 to 3 sentences for the purpose, 3 images that relate to the inalienable rights, 2 to 3 sentences about those inalienable rights, 2 to 3 sentences about where governments derive their power. Where does it come from? 3 sentences on the form of government when it becomes destructive. What can we do? 3 full sentences on the history of the King of Great Britain. 3 complaints clearly stated in sentence format. So give me 3 of the complaints, or summarize 5 of the complaints in your own words. The protest has to be 3 sentences on the legal protests of colonists and the British response. 3 sentences where the colonists declared themselves independent. And then a modernized 2-paragraph breakup letter to Great Britain. So hopefully everybody has clicked on the hyperlink for your transcript of the Declaration of Independence. And question number 1 says, the purpose of declaration, as stated in the introductory paragraph. What is the purpose of the declaration? And then explain. And literally it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and to assume among those powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Wow, that is a mouthful. So, when it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another government. This means that when the government does not uphold its end of the bargain, the people have the right to change or to get rid of it. We have to have 2 to 3 sentences. I've got 2 sentences to that. Can you think of anything else we need to add to that? Anybody? I'm waiting. You don't have anything else to add? Okay. Okay. All right. So that's our first part, right? Number 2, it says 3 natural or unalienable rights. So we know the first one, you're going to literally put in there life. The second one, liberty. And the third one, pursuit of happiness. Okay. And now you're going to find pictures that go along with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the pictures that I found to represent life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You just need to find your own 3 images for that. Okay. Question number 3 says inalienable rights of individuals. examine the inalienable rights of individuals as stated in the Declaration. Do you think these rights are upheld today? So when we go back to the Declaration, hang on just a second. Responding to a student, sorry about that. Let me go to, we're talking about we hold these truths to be self-evident, certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness can be seen being upheld in many instances, okay? Not only are they found in the Bill of Rights, because remember, we're supposed to talk about where they can be found, but the continual interpretation of those rights by legislatures and courts means that we as a country are working on upholding them. The creation of amendments to grant more rights and freedoms, like the 13th Amendment to end slavery, the 15th, the 19th, and the 26th Amendment giving voting rights to citizens who have been marginalized, are another way to uphold these rights mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. We see Supreme Court decisions broadening the interpretation of the rights of citizens. Okay. Those, did I give my 2 to 3 sentences? Absolutely. This is how I see these rights being upheld today. Okay. Question number 4, where do governments derive their powers? So in here, it talks about governments derive their power from, let me see, I got to find the exact one. Okay, says governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay. The idea that we, the people, which we see in the Constitution, give them their powers, right? So governments get their power from the consent of the governed. I see this last sentence didn't show up there. Here's the last sentence from that last one. Get their power to govern from the consent of the people that they govern. The idea is still there in that we hold free elections to choose those in government to represent our needs. Unfortunately, it's become less about what the people want and more about the government deciding without majority consent. So this is where they say it came from. And then the second part is this still the same in modern times? It's not quite, right? Yeah, unfortunately, right? I'm sad to say. All right. Number 5 says, according to the Declaration, whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, is it the right of the people to do what? And then right underneath there, it says, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. Okay, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So question number 5, it says people have the right to alter or change the government. The people also have the right to abolish the government or get rid of the current government altogether. Because people are the source of governmental power, they can then institute or create a new government. We might want to add something about based on freedoms and liberties they should continue to have, right? Okay, so we have question number 5 done. Question number 6, the history of the king. It asks, what is the history? The history of the king is one of repeated injuries and usurpations, George III acted as a tyrant and refused his assent to laws. In doing so, all had in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. And then that was right here at the bottom, the history of King George. Let me find it. I'm trying to find it right here. Number 7, summarize 3 of these complaints in your own words. You've got a long list of complaints to summarize. 3 full sentences according to the rubric. And then 8 talks about what legal means of protest had the colonists already tried. Right here is where it talks about what they had already tried. Put that in your own words. That's number 8. Number 9, the colonists declared themselves independent. Now what do they have the power to do? And it says, I'm trying to find it. All right, here. Right there, it talks about all the things that they have to do. They have the power to levy war and thus conclude peace. As an independent country, they can also contract alliances and establish commerce with other countries. Basically, they can do all other acts and things which independents may have the right to do. All right. The last thing, what I want you to come to class with is your breakup letter to the colonies. So on Friday, we'll do our breakup letters and we'll go over the quiz for Module 1, Lesson 1. So here's my breakup letter. Dear George, I've tried so many times to talk to you. I've written you emails, sent you texts and snaps, and even tried to come see you in person. None of these things have gotten through to you. I don't know what else to do. I have told you so many times over the years that you aren't listening to me. I just can't do it anymore. It's not me, it's you. You make decisions for me without talking to me first, and then get angry when I am not okay with them. You expect me to pay for all of your stuff to the point that I can't afford my own living. You send your friends to check up on me like I'm doing something wrong, and you won't stop. I have asked nicely and even yelled for you to stop. Enough is enough. I hope that you can eventually see the error of your ways and treat your other friends better than you have treated me. Sincerely, your former BFF, America. That's my modern day breakup letter, aka the Declaration of Independence. I kind of had fun writing it. I kind of liked it. So you guys are going to come up with your own. Remember, it's got to be 2 paragraphs. You got to talk about, like in the Declaration of Independence, this is what you, like, here's what's going on. These are all the things that you've done, and we're not putting up with it anymore. So you're going to conclude that. We'll talk about your letters next class, and we'll review for the quiz. And we are done. Does anybody have any last questions?